the property was owned by a brother and a sister. It was actually owned by a father who passed away, and the brother and sister were fighting over who gets the property. So there was a lot of court issues. And even though we had it under contract, there was something where we were waiting on the court's ultimate decision to decide if the woman could give it to us. So that lasted about 3 to 4 months, and it kind of put us on pause because we're like, well, do we keep calling brokers or do we wait? Because we only had so much capital, we could only do one deal.
In the back of your mind, your dreams should be real, right?
Thanks all for tuning in to Dreamcatchers, where we make things happen. Dreamcatchers was formally launched to unlock the hidden potential in successful, self-motivated individuals who desire to take their life's work to the next level but need support to evolve. We are a collective group of professionals with various backgrounds that use our talents to assist those individuals in realizing their wildest dreams by providing education, inspiration, and direction. This podcast is where we share the lessons we've learned along the way to catching our dreams and give you some context around the how and the why to each approach to put you further ahead on the journey to catching your dream. Are you ready?
Take the red pill.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dreamcatchers Podcast. I'm your host, Jerome, and I've got the good fortune of having my friend Michael Tighe with me today. Michael, how are you?
Doing well. It's Mike Tighe, like a bow tie.
Man, I messed up. Sorry, Michael.
It's all right, man. I should have told you. I told you ahead of time. You said the same thing everyone else says, so you're no different. The spelling's just a little well, but thanks. Our spelling's a little weird, but thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Michael's out in Cali, and he's an air traffic controller and a multifamily investor and a podcast host and all of the things. But I don't want to steal all your thunder. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, man?
How far back did you want me to go on that? You want to stick more multifamily? What's that?
You were born and then what?
Oh, so after high school, I got in the Navy. I wanted to do air traffic control, and I was in a career shadowing program in high school. And I won't go too deep into it to avoid being monotonous, but I just realized that the military was the easiest way to get a job doing air traffic control, and that was my one vision. That was my ultimate goal, and that was kind of my identity. You work so hard for something, it almost becomes your identity. So I just wanted to get to the busiest facility in the country. I'm now out of the Navy, been out for 10 years, and I work at Southern California Tracon, which services all of Southern California, and that's like the upper echelon of the field. But I knew, over the past couple of years, I realized that there was more to life than just working all the time. And I didn't like, my employer dictating my schedule constantly. I almost like the flexibility of being an entrepreneur or just having a business life such as yourself. And I knew retirement, I didn't want to be completely dependent on IRA and, Wall Street and those kind of methods. So I started branching out, and that's what brought me to real estate. And then when I first got into real estate, I never envisioned that I would, have the opportunity to become potentially financially free. It was just kind of a goal to supplement my retirement when the time did come, because we're fortunate in our field as air traffic controllers. We are forced out actually by 56, so we're no longer allowed to work. But by 50, we can retire with a pension. So the job's kind of got you by the balls, and to quit a job like that with a pension, we can retire at 50. People probably think you're crazy, right? There's not many jobs that offer that kind of benefit. And not gonna lie, that's an extremely great benefit, and it's very enticing, and I'm blessed to have that opportunity. But my partners and I decided that wasn't what we wanted ultimately. So we are pursuing financial freedom, such as yourself. And we found we can most likely achieve that through apartment investing. So that's what brought me to this.
So how did you get how'd you get exposure to apartment investing? And then how did you make your entry into the space?
I started off house hacking like a lot of people. Did you start off house hacking?
I did not.
Okay, gotcha. You jumped right into apartments?
I flipped a couple of houses, few houses, okay. Then went to apartments.
Gotcha. I started off with the house hack. So when I got out of the Navy, I worked as a contractor in Afghanistan as a civilian contractor, and it pays a lot. And you can save up a lot of money because you don't pay any taxes. So that's what enabled me to just save up money, and I had all this capital. and I put it in mutual funds initially, but it was just kind of sitting there. The return wasn't too great. And I knew I didn't have any knowledge or foundation. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, working as an air traffic controller up there. And I knew I wanted to buy a house that produced cash flow. I didn't even have that term. I just knew in my head, like, this is what I want. I had the concept, but I didn't have the terminology. But basically, I did a house hack. I wanted a house that would cash flow if I wasn't there. And I wanted a house that potentially could appreciate. It led me to buying in like a C neighborhood in East Torrance, West Carson area. And it was a great house hack. I lived in one room and Airbnb the other two rooms, which was a lot of work, changing sheets and all the time and everything. But I had that reserve saved up from Afghanistan, and then that allowed me to save additional money up. And then I additionally transferred down to San Diego, because I was chasing the world's busiest air traffic control facility. So I transferred down here, rented that place out. It cash flowed really great. And I bought in 2015, so it appreciated outstandingly. So the return on that property was actually like my best investment. But no one can predict appreciation, right? That's kind of, I got lucky on that part. So I had the cash flow in case it didn't appreciate, but it appreciated. So that's where the luck comes in. And I was blessed that acoccurred, and I sold it. And I bought some smaller multifamilies in Cleveland with a little bit of cash. But what led me, I think your ultimate question is what led me to apartments. My coworker and partner, Rich, I kind of mentioned to him that I was investing and the dynamics of it and the returns that I'm getting. And I said, and most people, and I'm sure you encounter this too, Jerome, people want to know, hey, what is it that you do and how does this work? And it's kind of a loaded question because it's a really long conversation, and someone can't, I don't think people realize that. They bring it up in passing, in the hallways at break at work. So I always have the same response. I direct people to a couple books because they want help and they don't know anything about it. So I'm like, well, read these two books and get back to me. And usually people are like, okay, and they'll be like, hey, Mike, I bought the book, but I never hear from them. But Rich read the books, and then he kept reading more and more. And he started reading apartment books. And he's like, Mike, I think you're doing it wrong by just buying these 4 units and less, And he started bringing up how apartments, commercial valuations are, how they come to the valuation number and the value of NOI and cap rates and everything, and how we can create equity. And he's like, dude, he's like, if we're going to partner, we really need to do commercial apartments. He's like, we all need to partner. This guy, Sean, I worked with, Sean DiMartel, who's now a partner, because we were all just initially looking at burring. And I'm from Cleveland, that's where I'm initially from before I was sent up to San Diego. So we were all looking at doing the buy, rehab, refinance, rent, repeat model. I might have mixed up one of those R's there. But it was really hard. It's a grind, man. You get one property. It takes just as much time as acquiring an apartment takes, maybe a little shorter. But I felt like the amount of work I put in that, and then you have one property. I'm like, my initial goal is I can do 2 a year. I can get 2 burrs a year. But he's like, man, he's like that small boy stuff from what I'm reading. He's like, we need a partner, Mike, and we need to go big. And I was like, no, man, I just want to max out my 10 Fannie Freddie loans. Like, you can max out your conventional or not conventional residential loans. That was my goal. And I was kind of aiming small. So it was cool to have someone like Rich with a large vision, even though he had no experience. But, he's a very confident guy. And he's like, we need to partner, we need to go big. And he kept sending Sean and I texts saying, we need to partner and go big. And eventually, I kept seeing the math, and I was like, you're right, man, let's do this. Let's all sit down, have dinner, and have a meeting, and get with the commercial lenders. So we discussed everything we needed to do. And then we read some books. We started with Dave Lindahl's book. I think it's called Multifamily Millions. Did you read that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I think that one lays a really good foundation just on the basics of apartment investing. So we took really good notes, set our plan, and just kind of followed it to a T. And I know it's weird to say, and it's probably hard for someone who's not in the industry to believe, oh, you read one book and you have a good foundation. I would say you could read a book like that if you take really good notes and if you follow it to a T, and you can make some moves. I mean, it's probably good to get additional knowledge and have a mentor, as you always suggest. And I think you are a mentor as well, right, Jerome?
I am. Yeah.
It's definitely good to have a mentor along the way. But if you read that book, you're going to have the foundational knowledge. And we started making moves. Rich started calling brokers. I started reaching out to property managers, and our roles kind of naturally developed. That Rich would work with the brokers. I would be the asset manager, and Sean would work on the renos and construction. And that's how we started attacking it. We got a lead in Indianapolis. Took us a long time to close on it because there's a lot of issues with probate court from the seller's side, but we closed on it, and now we're we're not forming a mentorship, but we're mentees, as you suggested, and many had suggested. And, we're just looking to expand and grow from there.
So talk to me about your mentor, or your coach. Like, what does that program look like? How'd you pick it? How'd you vet it out?
So we wanted, we did the first deal without a mentor, and it was just a joint venture deal, as I think you commonly do. But we wanted to go bigger, and we were all out of capital. We were blessed and fortunate enough to have money that we saved up from working crazy overtime, working in Afghanistan, etc. But we're like, okay, we have no capital now. So the next move typically is to raise money. But we're like, we really want someone to bring clout to our team when we're raising money. And I interviewed 5 or 6, the biggest programs out there. I don't want to say names, but I'm sure if people in the industry can imagine who they are. And a lot of them were very cookie cutter, and it was just it wasn't tailored to the individual group. And that's what we were looking for. We were looking for a mentor that we could work with directly, who could bring a lot of clout to our team. And we didn't care if we had to pay a little bit extra for that. For a lot of these bigger mentorship programs, you're kind of working with 6 different associates. You're not working with one chief syndicator, someone who has all the expertise. So we actually asked one of our guests that was on our podcast when the show was over, hey, do you have anyone you can recommend to mentor us? And he said, my brother and I have been looking to do it. And we realized he might be the perfect person because him and his brother have 990 million in real estate, and they have like 6,000 units, but they don't really care about building a brand. They're not, the Joe Fairless of the world where they have books, they have a brand. They just kind of acquire assets, and they don't really care that people know about it. So we thought they'd be perfect because they felt smaller and more intimate, even though they were huge. They were bigger than most of these names that could pop into your head. And we would work with them directly. We were their first students. So that's kind of what we were looking for. Now, they might not be right for everybody. If you're first starting off, you probably want someone maybe like the just the bigger programs. I don't want to name any of them, but any of the bigger programs that are more designed from taking you from your cradle to your grave. They're going to start you off with the fundamentals and teach you just the basics. Like, this is the definition of NOI, because that's kind of what their program is designed for. It's designed for someone who knows nothing. So if you've never done a syndication or an apartment transaction, those programs are better, but it just wasn't right for us.
Nice. So I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your deal. So tell me about the first deal that you guys closed out in Ohio.
Yeah, so actually it was in Indianapolis. In Cleveland, it was just me who bought a 4-plex. And then, but in Indy, my partner Rich was just networking with brokers, and it's the usual conversation when you're new, and I'm sure you can empathize with the situation. Jerome, you're calling and you don't have any deals, and they're like, all right, well, who are you? What's your background? Why should I send you anything? And usually Rich was getting the runaround. They're sending us crap deals that don't meet our parameters, and and eventually Rich calls this guy Daryl, this broker from Marcus and Millichap in Indy. And he said, I don't have anything for you. And he's like, Rich, tell me about yourself, though. And he said he's an air traffic controller, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of where Daryl made a connection with him. Because Daryl's like, oh, my brother, someone he knew was an air traffic controller. He's like, Rich? He's like, I think I got something for you. He's like, this deal's not on market yet. And that's kind of, that's, people like that term off market deal because it makes it feel like you get more value. And it's often the case, but not always. So yeah, he brought it to us. We ran the numbers. We're like, wow, this is a huge value add deal. We have to make an offer on this. And we were so conservative that we were just underwriting on actuals. So we made an offer that was just based on the current NOI divided by the cap rate, the way it was operating. And we didn't, and they declined it. And we brought it up a little bit, to account for the value add potential. And eventually we got a contract. But the issue was the property was owned by a brother and a sister. It was actually owned by a father who passed away, and the brother and sister were fighting over who gets the property. So there was a lot of court issues. And even though we had it under contract, there was something where we were waiting on the court's ultimate decision to decide if the woman could give it to us. So that lasted about 3 to 4 months, and it kind of put us on pause because we're like, well, do we keep calling brokers or do we wait? Because we only had so much capital, we could only do one deal. So we waited. And eventually she got back to us and said, all right, it's a go, we can close on it. And it took about 6 months for that to occur. And I know when you were on our podcast, we were telling you we were measuring our debt options because it wouldn't qualify for conventional lending initially because it wasn't a stabilized building. And we didn't have enough money. We were undercapitalized. It was a heavy run out. It needs about $500,000 to $600,000 in renovation. But there was enough meat on the bone that it was worth it. It was all 1960s vintage. Basically we were buying a bag of bricks. We were buying bricks and land because everything needed to go. I know they say don't buy for CapEx, but the numbers made sense that we could replace all the CapEx. And we probably won't do this in the future because it's a lot of work. But all the CapEx items needed replaced too, except for the roof, plumbing, electrical. Most of those items needed replacement. The balconies. Yeah. A lot of people listening probably can't see Jerome's face right now, but he's got a crazy expression. With the one eyebrow raised look. So most of the CapEx items needed replaced. So we need more capital. And we were looking at accomplishing that via bridge debt, which we are so thankful we didn't do. We were initially going to do that. And it just got a little shady when the lender would give us only a max of 18 months with no extension. We're like, man, we can't work with no extension. The notes due at 18 months. And actually it was you, Jerome, who kind of put this fear in me. I was already really skeptical. And I think, we were just shooting the shit before our show when you were on. And you're like, man, a lot of these guys, they ultimately want to just acquire the property. That's the lender's goal. And they set you up for failure. They want you to fail. And I'm not saying that's all lenders, but, it could kind of make sense how that would be more lucrative for them.
What's up, tribe? It's your host, Jerome. I just want to let you know that we put together a free 15-point checklist for exiting the matrix. Jump on over to dreamshouldbereal.com in order to pick your free copy up. Let's get back to the show.
And I was like, this feels like we are set up to fail because we had 18 months and with bridge debt, you don't just get the money up front. They give it to you in draws. And then they have to come out and see that you completed the work, then they pay, and then the next work can start. So it slows everything down. Then I was like, guys, there's no way we can do this in 18 months. We need to pivot a little bit. So we went the conventional route. We brought on 3 investors who, it wasn't a syndication. They're not limited partners. We brought them on as JVs. They're not too active in the deal, but it was still worth it for us. Hey, you guys can get the JV role. We'll do most of the work, and you just bring your money on board. So we did that. We went. We got 80-20. We got a 5-year loan, and it's amortized over 25 years. And we're full speed ahead, and it's going great. It's actually going way better than expected now. So I think everyone, even investors, are glad we got it. The rents were increasing about $200 a unit. So it's huge, and and I know replacing CapEx is the most popular thing because there's no immediate value you get. Like when you paint a unit, you can say, okay, I painted it, I can raise rents X amount. But when you put new balconies on, it's like, well, I guess the main thing is in the future, you can say everything is replaced in this building. It's like a brand new building. It's a brick building, pitched roof. So it's like, we probably won't need to touch anything on this asset for the next 30 years, hopefully, except for the roof and some small things. But so that's where we're at with that. And we're full speed ahead and just in the process of doing the reposition.
What's been your worst fear in the process?
I think most people's fear in any endeavor is just failure, not getting the job done. And that kind of is motivating, right? Especially when you have other people's money on the line. If it was just me, for some reason, I don't know why, I wouldn't be as fearful. But when you have someone else, you don't want to, I think inherently people don't want to let others down. Fortunately, everything we promised them was really conservative, so the rents we're going to get are far greater than we even told them. So everything's exceeding expectations. But yeah, I would say fear of failure, and especially your peers, your coworkers, your family knows you're putting a lot of money in these things, and their mindset is kind of, why isn't that in your IRA and your retirement fund? Why is this going in this crazy apartment building in Indianapolis that you've never really seen? You see once. So that's just kind of their mentality. But yeah, it was just fear of failing and everyone pointing at you, being like, "Haha, I told you so." That can be a motivating factor.
Has there come a point where everything was on the line and,
Everything was on the
the
line.
rock bottom-ish?
You know what? There was no rock bottom. I think everything was on the line. That pivotal moment where I actually felt like some internal friction. Um, and another credit to you, Jerome. Shout out to you on this because we were hesitant to get that bridge loan. I already wasn't feeling good about it. And then when you mentioned that thing about the banks, when we got off that podcast with you, Jerome, back in December, I think it was, we're like, guys, we can't do bridge debt. We have, look, I'm backing out. Either we're not doing bridge debt. I'm backing out. And I wasn't even signed an LLC, so they couldn't hold me to anything. But that was going to be my move, just to let them know how serious I was, because you can get so excited that you finally got your first deal that you become an emotional thinker, not a cognitive thinker. So it's your emotions and you're like, guys, we can make this work. There's the emotional thoughts like we can make this work. We can do it in 12 months. We don't need 18 months. But it's like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? It's great to say we can and believe and have faith, but you got to be a little practical too. So I think the rock bottom moment was when we pivoted from bridge debt. That was kind of, the friction point.
Nice.
And it's funny I'm discussing this with you right now since you kind of are part of the story.
Well, I mean, I could see that you guys are going down the right path, just a little bit of help along the way.
Yeah.
It keeps moving the boat. And then you guys took the recommendation and got into, some relationship that's going to help you explode the business and take it to the next level. Has there been any financial reward or any other reward for what you guys have done so far?
Just the knowledge, just the on-the-job knowledge we've gained along the way. We've actually changed marketing tactics this week, and we've started using the Facebook Marketplace and creating crazy amount of ads in there. And our lead generation has skyrocketed. And we're like, why haven't we been doing the marketplace all the time? Do you do marketplace?
Yeah, you're talking about to lease the units, right?
Yeah. So, just little things like that you learn along the way, that the marketplace might not be big in California, but in the Midwest, that's how people search for apartments. I've never searched for an apartment like that. I always just use Zillow, I guess, when I'm looking for places. But yeah, it's really big in the Midwest, and obviously the marketplace is just a small thing you take away from it, but there's so many other bigger items that you'll carry over to future projects.
Has there been anything that's tried to pull you back and to just make it so busy that you don't have the time or ability to actually work on the dream that you guys are manifesting?
Yeah. Time management is huge. And I'm sure you can relate to that, especially, since you've grown so quickly. I remember like when I was just, I think it was 2011, I was out of the Navy and I was just going to grad school, and I felt so busy. I always felt like I didn't have time. It's because I didn't make time for anything. I only went to class like 3 days a week, and I had some dumb hobbies like playing video games. And so when I said I didn't have time, it's because it meant I wanted to watch Netflix and play video games. But realistically, and we work 6 days a week in our job, but we're still able to get this stuff done. And for me, I don't know how the other guys do it, but just having a calendar and committing to your schedule, like, I don't know, just kind of when you go to bed, like, okay, what would my ideal morning look like before work? What do I need to get done? And how am I going to do it? And just scheduling everything. And you realize, I feel like I have more time now than I did when I was in that 2011, I don't have time mentality, when I'm only going to school 3 days a week, not even working. So I think just realizing what's important to you and prioritizing where you want to allocate your time, and then just kind of executing on it and following through, and being as close to hitting it as possible, even if you don't hit everything 100% for the day. You committed and at least you had an aim, right?
Yeah, that's big. Is that the biggest difference in your approach to life so far since you made
time management? As far as time management?
Or is just time management or committing to the schedule, or are you making other big shifts to make sure that you stay on path?
So time management is the biggest thing, is just as far as increasing my effectiveness, and then just kind of eliminating a lot of BS that's just you realize isn't important. I don't really watch much TV anymore. I like reading a lot of self-help books and stuff like that. I heard you read Pitch Anything recently. I heard you say that on one of your podcasts. I just finished that one. That's a great book. And those books can kind of motivate you too, right? Even though it's kind of just downtime, little hobby stuff, you leave it with more knowledge, and you're just motivated, and you can act on that.
Got it. So in this new space, what are you most grateful for, Michael?
This new space, man, first of all, say I'm grateful for my health. Like we wouldn't be able to do anything we were doing right now if we weren't healthy, especially with this COVID-19 stuff going on. I think that can kind of make you self-realize. And we also wouldn't have this opportunity if we didn't live in a Western country, a Western civilization, to be able to be an entrepreneur and a businessman. A lot of people take that for granted. And then, just having the partners that I have and, the people around you to help you grow, because I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for that partnership. So, that's huge. And just mentors and, even just the connections you make on podcasts, meeting someone like Jerome Myers, and all the other awesome guests we've had. There's so much you can take away, and it's not all, just a self-serving action having a podcast, right? You learn so much. So, and then you kind of have a contact. You meet these people, you exchange information, and you can reach out if you need something usually. Yeah, I don't know if I fully answered your question.
No, that's great. Perfect. And I'm sure your partners are going to be glad to hear you mention them in the group of things or people you're most grateful for. What dream are you most focused on catching next?
I want to be where you're at, man. Financially free. We're still working. Work has slowed down. We're working less just because of this COVID thing. But once it ramps back up, we'll be back in there 6 days a week. But we're just trying to replace our W-2 income with passive income, and then from there, we just want to grow and then pursue outside endeavors, that are good. Just, it allows you to aim for the highest possible good you can achieve in your life and actually achieve it. When you're working all the time, it's hard to do those things. I think everyone has, maybe an altruistic calling, something that they feel like their heart is attracted to. And once you have more free time and more money, you can pursue those things and you can improve those areas that you feel like you're called to. So that's kind of my vision and my goal. And I know my partners have the same vision with being financially free as well. We'd love to be there in 2 years, but we'll see.
Yeah, don't rush it. Don't be too aggressive. Buy it right so that it doesn't do any good to get there and then have to go back, right? So you want to be one and done, and so just take your time and work through the process. Is my 2 cents for whatever that's worth. Is there
worth a lot, man?
Yourself giving the world right now?
Say that again.
Is there a gift that you consider yourself giving the world right now?
A gift that I'm giving. I mean, currently, and it's not even self-serving. Just like, and you do this as well, and most people do it in our space. It's just financial knowledge. I think if other people realize, if they invest, in things outside of just the stock market and Wall Street, they can create passive income and they can pursue their own personal endeavors as well. And if more people are doing that, there's going to be a greater good, at least in our country, So I think just giving people that financial knowledge, that they don't have to work till they're 70 years old, and that they can have passive income and kind of pursue other endeavors. I feel like that's huge, and that's kind of the greater good that we're providing right now. And obviously in the future, there's more that I want to do personally than just that. But we have our meetups and our podcasts, and I think that's where most kind of like our main platform where we're expounding upon these items.
Awesome. So if the listeners want to catch up with you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So let's see. Our Instagram is, I don't even run the Instagram. Oh, it's the Multifamily Takeoff, the Multifamily Takeoff. My email is mike@themultifamilytakeoff.com. And then we have a website with the same name, themultifamilytakeoff.com. It's just kind of branded on our aviation backgrounds as pilots and air traffic controllers.
It's clever, man. I really enjoy it. You do a great job with the podcast, guys. It's one of the highest quality sound from a sound perspective that I heard, and they're also great interviewers. So check them out for sure. Last question. What's the one thing you want people to take away from this conversation?
One thing I want people to take away from this conversation. I would say, first of all, just slow down and become self-aware and look for areas where you can personally improve. I think that's where it starts, because without introspect, you're always kind of looking at others. But I think if you realize where you can improve, and then you can start setting finite goals. And I would say don't let them be muddy. Like, set a hard number. And I know that's scary, because then you're afraid, well, what if I fail? It's not, you fail if you don't set the goal. But set a goal and don't leave your goals muddy. Set a hard number, and at least you have an aim, right? There's no failing. that's how I view it anytime I set a goal. And then just the time management, I'm not going to dig much deeper into what I said, but I think people have a lot more time than they realize. It's just where they're allocating their time and what's important to them. You're never too busy if you just manage your time well and set up a daily schedule and kind of envision what your perfect day looks like. So when you wake up, you can truly rise and shine.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Michael, I really appreciate you being on the show, being so generous with your time and sharing those nuggets of wisdom with the listeners. I look forward to following up on your journey as you guys catch more of these dreams. And to the listeners, do us a favor, share this with somebody, give us a rating, review, likes, all those things matter. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining the tribe today. We would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate, like, and share. Perhaps someone you know could benefit from what we've discussed. Until the next time, remember that your dreams should be real.